It says we're live.
All right, we're live, I guess. What's up, Narwhal? How you doing?
Doing good. Yeah, now you can confirm on that other window on your actual YouTube channel. You should see it pop up or whatever.
Okay, that's a bridge too far. Hey, everybody, it's your friend Adam. I'm here with Narwhal. We're going to talk about comic pacing because I'm a total noob and I'm working on a comic, and I realized, man, I know a lot about pacing from movies and stuff like that, but comics is a completely different game. So I'm reading through the comic. I pretty much have thumbed everything out, and there's large sections of it that just feel off to me. So I had all these questions, and I thought Narwhal knows a lot about storytelling. Maybe he can help me out. So you've done a lot of storyboarding and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, and I do think if the pacing of like the script or whatever is good, then that will help the pacing of the comic. But then there's like a lot of little things. And I got some examples, and I can answer your questions and we can go over all that kind of stuff. I wanted to ask you, for your script, do you format it as a movie script and then convert it? That's what I do, actually. I wonder if you do that, or do you write your script like as a comic script this time?
Let me just check. Oh, it says we are live. Good. I don't know if there's anyone in the chat. Let us know. Ask me that question one more time.
When you write for your comic script, do you write it formatted as a movie script, or do you write it formatted as a comic script, I guess?
I wrote it as I'm writing with a co-author, and we wrote it as a film script because I figured that would be the best pacing for me, just because I have a ton of experience. I've read like thousands of scripts. So and I've seen other people do that specifically in Comicsgate. So it just seemed appropriate for me. Is that inappropriate? It seems like maybe it is.
No, that's what I do too. And then, then there's that extra phase of the thumbnailing. Yeah, is converting the script into the page breakdowns, basically. And like that, you said that's what you're doing now. I know, like, I can tell you like some rule of thumbs to even get started is I've noticed over the years, it's like, if it's like the pages of movie script, say it's like 50 pages, that would be like, ballpark 100 pages of comic. It could be like a little less or a little more. Part of that depends on how much action too is in the comic, because a lot of action will be more pages.
Yes,
that's kind of like how movies is with minutes too. But
that rule of thumb I discovered pretty quickly that two pages of comic script to 1 page of movie script. Yes. And we were actually, when we started writing it, we were shooting for 24 pages, but we have a ton of action. Like when I was writing scripts, most of the scripts I was writing were action comedies. So I'm totally down with the action comedy. So immediately I started thinking, okay, we got to rough this thing out. It was like 32 pages, and it kept seeming like, we were never going to hit that 48 page mark that we were shooting for.
Like, you were going to go over it, or are you going to go under?
Yes. Over.
Yeah.
It. Yes.
Yeah. Because that would be tight and kind of dense, maybe. And so then, especially, if there's action, because the action will take up a lot of the page count. So you could go a little over 48, or you could take a look at the script and try and cut back some stuff. I've seen a few episodes of Star Trek recently where you could tell they went over the 40-minute like time for the aired TV show, and the editing just at certain points gets so jarring, and it's kind of funny. It makes me laugh. But
yeah, I wonder, I guess maybe I can type in the chat. What's up, guys? I see Blue Sea Hill, but that's all I see. So we got someone's in the chat.
Yeah, Blue Sea Hill, El Gargoyle, Israel Garcia. What's up, everyone?
Narwhal only has about an hour, and we threw this together. Well, I was trying to do it on OBS. I haven't used StreamYards, but one other time. So I apologize I don't have the chat up, but I figure I would just share it with you guys. And Narwhal's got a book in demand, Foreign Agent, right? I backed that book. Like when you first did.
Thank you. Yeah. Foreign Agents in Demand. I'm in the process of fulfilling that now, waiting for proofs, which has kind of been a little slow process, kind of slowed it down because of COVID a little bit. But it's going good, going smooth. And then once that fulfills, then Earthbound 2 will be my next book.
Earthbound 2. And you got a lot of play from Earthbound 2 because your boy Zach said it was like genius, as I remember.
Yeah, he was a big fan.
So why did I back Foreign Agent? I should have backed Earthbound 2. What's going on?
I know Earthbound 2 is not available yet, but Earthbound 1 it sold out because of his good review. So that
Right.
like changed my life. That was weird. That was last spring. That was, I tell people like I had a adrenaline rush for a week from that. So
yeah, so that's another good, what's the pacing like in there? Like I pulled up, I had some questions that I sent you. Let's see if I can find them here. Because I was going to ask you like how many bubbles per page, how many pages per scene, and how much story per page is this thing, because I like fast-paced stuff. I like lots of information, lots of story being thrown. I like, an inciting incident on the first page if possible. I read a lot of mainstream comic books, and it's like, get to it. We get it already. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah. So you can see certain pages look intimidating just because of the word bubble ratio.
Sure. Yeah.
And that some of that is like some dated kind of that depending on the era. Like I'll show you one example. Oh, the other thing I was going to say quickly, kind of regarding pacing, is like it's good if every page has a beginning, middle, end. If you're kind of doing that, then you can do whatever you want because that'll be cool. That kind of helps the pacing. And sometimes, so when you're going from that script phase to the thumbnailing, you can kind of sense that. Sometimes I'll just read the script and mark it with a pencil, wherever I think there might be a page turn. And it's kind of on any like punctuation. If anything feels like a period or an exclamation mark or a question mark, then that could be a page turn.
Troll with a purpose says Adam for hardcore Henry comic. Yeah, exactly. Action is my thing. Seriously, this book that we're working on has so much action in it, and I love I love action reveals. So I wish I had more than 48 page turns because that's like the only place you can do a setup and a payoff reveal.
Yeah. You can take advantage of that, and that's fun. So I have with me the Dark Knight Returns. Many people say this is the best comic of all time. So here's the first page. It's 16 panels, and so I was gonna reread it recently, and I got to that page and I didn't. I was like, no, I'll read it later, maybe. But I'm like not into the 16 panel pages. But this book's funny. It's like so dense, and it can get you into its world. It can get you in that zone. Then you'll really
hold
like
it up again.
Yeah,
so
we'll put it up here.
Okay.
So that's kind of like
wow. Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's like a dense, crazy amount of page. So at one thing though is like this could help you if you are worried about your pages being too dense, you don't necessarily have to worry about that. You can have like if there's some dialogue scenes, you can pack it in and get to the action and then let it breathe when you're in the action to fit it in 48 pages if you really have to.
We're not even close to that dense, so I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, I know for me, like for Earthbound, so I have that here too. We can look at that really quick. Let me see. So Earthbound is like really not dense, and I've been getting more dense. I've been trending towards like my average. I think the average panel count for Earthbound is like 5, maybe. Let me see, and I'll whatever. I'll show a few pages, then I'll just count. Like this is kind of interesting data. We'll do like a panel count. But my average lately has been like 7, and I like 7 more than 5 for me, especially for my minimalist style. But yeah, so really quickly, like Earthbound page 1 is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Page 2 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then it's a splash page. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But 3 of those are like tiny little sound effect panels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, and that reads really fast, almost too fast. Sometimes I read comics and I'm like, you're turning the page if you're turning the page like every 1 or 2 seconds, to me that might be a little too fast.
Interesting. So you think of it in terms of how fast you're turning the page.
Yeah. And like here's just some random pages. You can see the amount of word bubbles. So there's not really that many word bubbles on this page.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, about 10.
Yeah, and this is
11.
definitely kind of in that realm where this would be about 2 pages for every page of script. Like here, this is actually like a dialogue scene, so you can see like there's still kind of a lot of word bubbles, but it still reads pretty fast.
Yeah, that's good.
There's some 7 panel pages there. For a dialogue scene, you might want more panels just to get it out of the way, get to the good action. Then you can have like a 3 panel page or a splash page or whatever. Let's look at another example is an old.
Are you beating on you're hitting your mic or something over there? It's making a lot of noise.
Oh yeah, sorry. I can move.
That's okay.
I think that'll fix it.
Sounds like you're dragging it around with your headphones.
Yeah, I think my headphone cord was rubbing on it.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is all in French, so I've never read it, but it's like Corto Maltese. It's like a French comic, and it's like this is like old, so then you can see it's all about the storytelling, all about that old school comic style.
Yeah.
And for this, the panels it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 10 panels, 9 panels, 11, 12 panels. I remember Frank Miller was doing 16 panels. All of Watchmen, that's one that's like a really famous, good comic. It's like all a 9-panel grid. Pretty much the whole book is like a 9-panel grid. And that's weird. That'll slow it'll like slow the pacing down, but you can get pulled into that once you get into it. It's not like you might be jarring at first. But yeah, with these two, like the panels get really functional for this. So like if a lot of these panels are just like a head with a word bubble. It's almost like a cartooning style. Whereas if you go, you can get a little more cinematic, quote unquote, if you do fewer panels and then they have like a full background and have it look kind of cool. And you can have more, you could have a whole conversation in one panel, like a back and forth 3 or 4 times, instead of 4 panels of just a head with a bubble. It's like one drawing with lots of detail in the background and 4 bubbles just going back and forth. That's like maybe a little more cinematic. I'm just kind of playing with like the rhythm of the panels and what you want to do there. But I think, yeah, the rule of thumbs that's good is like kind of keeping in mind just that 2 pages for every page of comic script. And if every page has its own little beginning, middle, and end, then you're good no matter what you do. Kind of, you can go one way or the other and people will kind of get into it.
Yeah. So in screenwriting, there's kind of a rule of thumb, 3 to 5 pages per scene. Is there some equivalent like that in comics? Is there you don't want to go 8 pages on one scene? Or
yeah, I could speak that a little bit. Yeah, it's like, to me it feels really good when you got a snappy scene in a comic, which would, if it's like 1 page, 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages, 5 pages, 6 starts to get kind of high, and then you're you're in that zone. And it depends a little bit on like, I guess, like what you're going for. Like I just watched a movie like a few weeks ago called Terms of Endearment. You remember that movie, that old Jack Nicholson movie?
Hell yeah.
No, sorry.
Movies Terms of Endearment, that's like a cry.
Yeah, yeah.
Or no. Fest. Are you kidding?
Yeah. And I'm thinking, sorry, that one too, but the one I was thinking of was the other one from that director.
Did you cry, Narwhal? Be honest.
Oh yeah, that movie will make me cry.
Terms of Endearment. Like, I think there's a scene where a lady has to come out and tell her kid she has cancer and she's dying.
Yeah, and she's
like, oh fuck.
She's like, I want you to know I forgive you because you weren't there for me when I'm dying, and you're gonna hate yourself later for how you're acting now.
Oh my God.
I want you to know that I forgive you. Something like that. Yeah, it's sad. But so that movie and that writer, it's like he worked on The Simpsons a bunch too. I forget his name. He's like pretty famous, but he's like a writer, almost like stage play, really. And he'll do scenes that like evolve, and they're like Tarantino style, like. Sure. So you could try and do a Tarantino style scene in a comic, and that might be cool. But I personally like real snappy, and I've been getting into comics. Can kind of do editing pretty good, and like because every panel is like a cut, So comics can do like staccato editing, so you can actually cut between like multiple locations on one page. Something that feels kind of cool. If it's like a montage, or if it's you're setting up. Like a heist and you're following the cops and the robbers at the same time. You don't necessarily want like 1 page for the cops, 1 page for the robbers, 1 page for the cops, 1 page for the robbers. Like you can mix it up and it feels cool.
Yeah. So it sounds like you can really just do anything. I worry that it's going to drag. I'm looking at some of the sections that we've thumbed out and I think, okay, this is too slow. Like we're spending too much time setting up this piece of information, which is just basically exposition, and it's not getting to the root of the story. And I'm just trying to root all of that out of the script.
Yeah, I wonder. I know like some tricks that some writers do. Who am I thinking of? Brian K. Vaughan kind of does this. He's one of my favorites. Pretty big inspiration. Is he'll throw in like a little like spark in there, whether it's like a joke or someone saying something ridiculous in the middle of an exposition scene. That'll kind of spice it up a little bit. But that's actually because you guys are working on this comic. You know, you go through the script phase, then the thumbnailing phase, then you're like these are all like new drafts, so things will come up. You'll notice points of dialogue, like it doesn't matter what that character says for some things. If it's like a fight scene and they have to just talk trash, they can literally say anything. So sometimes when that happens, I'll write like over the course of working on the comic 5 different versions of what they say, and then kind of pick and feel for that. And that comes up in the lettering phase too, where you're like, oh, or it's our last chance to tweak and fuck with this. Sometimes like with Earthbound, I would do that. Like I got through the exposition scene by like adding like maybe a little bit of sexual tension or something, having, I don't know, just adding some shit that maybe wasn't there before, but then it's like a little spice to kind of keep it moving a little bit.
How subtle are you in your writing? Like you're talking about sexual tension. I guess you're illustrating that on people's faces as well as in the dialogue, probably more on the faces in the dialogue. Like that's the advantage of having the face, having the illustration.
Yeah. And I've come up with this in the past is like, for me, I've realized I don't like going too subtle, because I used to do that when I was younger, and I'd be patting myself on the back like, oh, this is so subtle, so badass or whatever. And then no one gets it. And I'm like, maybe it's not that good if no one gets it, so I should make it less subtle. And so sometimes you can almost just say it. I maybe I have the exact example I'm thinking of. Let me see here. So
this is funny. You're describing the conflict between me and Sitch all the time as we're writing, because he wants to make it all subtle, and I'm like, no, you gotta hit him in the face with it.
Yeah.
If you have a good story, why are you in screenwriting? They call it hiding the ball. You know, the new writers always come in and they want to make everything so mysterious, and it's mysterious to the point where you don't really know what's going on. And how can you be engaged in a story that you have no idea what's going on? So I'm always like, hit them 3 times with it. Make sure that they catch it.
Yeah. Like J.J. Abrams does the thing where you don't know what's going on, and then you just, I guess, keep watching.
And then he just ends it, and you never know what's going on. It's so bad.
Yeah. So I have this scene where Spaceman and Julia have to get sent on their mission. They have to meet the guy who debriefs them. So like they're kind of prisoners, so they get brought into this room. And
hold on, I missed it. There we go.
Okay. So Spaceman and Julie, this is Earthbound. And this is like the beginning of the exposition scene. And you can see this is like what we would call fast pacing, because there's not that many word bubbles, but there's still a fair amount of panels. So it's kind of like cinematic, you know, whatever, read it pretty fast. And I'm changing that a little bit with my new styles evolving to get a little bit more panel per page or whatever. But yeah, so then the guy, his name's Cleric, he greets them. He says, Spaceman, Julia, welcome. Jeffrey tells me you're both quite frisky. I told him he's just projecting. And then Jeffrey, who's this frog guy, he goes, time will prove me right how frisky these two are. And they're just waiting. And he goes, a mission has come up that will grant one of you your freedom. Oh, I see, that got your attention. So that's the end of the 2-page spread. And whatever. He just referenced that they're frisky. So however subtle that is, you guys can decide, I guess.
Well, you do use the word frisky, which immediately adds a sexual connotation to it, which I think is cool.
Yeah, because my idea was that they've been in stasis, and like, how does that work for your sex organs? Like, do you want to get laid as soon as you get out of stasis because it's been years, or not? And in this version, it's kind of like, yes, like you got built up jizz and shit, whatever.
Hilarious. So is Earthbound 1 going to be available when you launch Earthbound 2? Am I going to be able to catch up? Is it a sequential story, or is it like episodic?
Yeah. So you would want to read Earthbound 1 before reading Earthbound 2, and they both will still be available. So yeah, that I'm excited to launch that one, because it will be probably one of my biggest campaign yet, because there's still demand for Earthbound. It's sort of sold out, so a lot of people will want that. Then a lot of people are going to get Earthbound 2. So like, I'm just excited for that, basically. And that will end it. That ends the story too. And that is based on like an old movie script I wrote when I was 27 that it's like 120 pages about. So yeah, like the two versions together, Earthbound 1 and 2, is about 240 pages, kind of, you know.
What's up, Camel Moon? I see Camel Moon in the chat. I see Zero Cart, and I see bottled titty milk. Really? Where can I get that? I see Troll with a Purpose. What's up, guys? So yeah,
What's up, everyone?
So the pacing, sounds like I just need to keep things moving along and use my gut intuition about how much story per page. And if I get like 8 pages of nonsense, well, actually, you're saying a scene that goes on for 8 pages is probably too long. What if there's no talking in the scene? What if it's all action?
That would be fine. Then yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but if it's all talking, like I know like what SJW Marvel does, you know, like they like your boy Zach has pointed this out, like with the Mariko Tamaki's Hulk, and there's another one he just reviewed today that I haven't watched yet, but she'll do stuff where they're literally sitting and drinking coffee and like eating at a cafe for like 8 or 9 pages.
What?
And it's like,
oh my God.
whoa,
make it stop.
Yeah, that cannot happen in a comic.
So what are they talking about? Is it stuff that's germane to the plot, or is it just like
yeah, it might be like half and half. I wonder what they're trying to do, like if it's like trying to do slice of life. But even if you do slice of life, yeah, you would want it to be relevant to the plot. You would want to spice it up in some way. You want them doing stuff besides just sitting, like, and you could do like there's stuff
playing racquetball in bikinis, right?
Yeah,
While they're talking.
Yeah, and there's something I do in Earthbound too that like, I don't know, this could help, like it helps on the script format too, but you can cut to a new area, but then the old area, its dialogue continues to play out over the new visuals. So like I do that in Earthbound where it's WizKid and Blogart are doing an interview at a high school. They're just talking, but then while they're just talking, then we cut to Spaceman and Julia getting woken up out of the stasis pods and dragged to the showers and brought in for the mission and stuff, while this high school dialogue's playing over the top of it that we established earlier. So you can layer stuff like that. That's kind of just like movie, that applies to movie making too, like using voiceover or whatever, but or like off screen kind of dialogue.
Everybody has kind of a go ahead, sorry to cut you off.
Oh, sorry. I mean, I was gonna say that's like another like little trick to spice up exposition if you have to or whatever.
Yeah, I think we do that a couple of times, and everyone kind of has, well, I'm assuming everyone kind of has that, all those movie conventions in their head. So when you do that, when you start a scene with 2 characters talking and then you go into other stuff, but you continue the talking in like a voiceover type box, then people just, they've witnessed that in movies and television so many times, it can play it in their mind the same exact way. It just completely makes sense.
Definitely, they seem to get it. And that's another difference between kind of old comics and new comics, is old comics use voiceover, like actual voiceover all the time, like Frank Miller, you know, it'll actually be like a hard-boiled voiceover of like prose almost of him like giving commentary on what's happening. And like I have Weapon X too, is like that, Wolverine talking, you know, like almost poetically, but in a badass way. And like that is not cinematic, that's comic style, like old comic style. It's a little bit dated, some people love it, some people don't like it. It's not really my style. And I think some of the more modern style is because people do kind of just trend more towards the movie, what we're used to with movies, and like maybe like the pie in the sky of wanting to get a movie deal or whatever, which Comicsgate kind of frowns upon that anyway, but it's like still kind of there. Even if we deny it, we think about that as like,
don't think about it, Narwhal, because it's not going to happen. I'm telling you.
Yeah,
like, the idea of getting a movie deal off of your comic is so pie in the sky. Like it's not really even a thing. It's kind of funny because I feel like that's, there are definitely people who think that's I mean, and it could happen. I mean, never say never. Like anything could happen, but it just seems there was a time in LA when people were buying IP all over the place, but nowadays it costs so much money to develop an IP that they want something that's been established with a huge audience, and none of our stuff really has that. I mean, it could one day, I don't know.
Yeah. And for me, it's like I've thought about like, do I want to write a script with that heavy voiceover, use it in the comic? And you can control pacing that way too. It kind of slows the pacing down a lot. And not that that's a good thing or a bad thing. It just does it. Like if you have panels with no words on them, people will kind of go over it quick. That reminds me, that was some notes I got on Earthbound was there's an action scene, like pretty quick one where WizKid gets chased through a locker room. And I had no dialogue. I just had him kind of doing some cool dodgy kickflip things and then getting away. And one of the notes an editor gave me was like, you might want to add some dialogue just to slow it down a little bit, slow the pacing down so people don't read this cool action scene way too fast. And that's a point where too, like the dialogue could be anything. It basically has to be kind of like the equivalent of trash talk. So like I ended up doing it where I can kind of show it. Want to put me on the big screen again?
Yeah, that's worth the price of this live stream right there, because we have a bunch of action that I don't think there's any dialogue in. So maybe we should put some dialogue in it.
Yeah, and that's like if you look at like manga and stuff, they'll always have like some trash talk or some narrative that can be expressed with words also kind of going with the action. And yeah, that is a good thing to think about. So yeah, with this case, I didn't even add that much, but they find him, they chase him, and he says, "Get him," and he jumps, and then I'm covering the word bubble. What does he say? He says, "Juke City," when he dodges him. And then he dodges another guy, and he goes, "Population, this guy," and then he gets.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of trash talk in our script, so we can definitely add some trash talk to our fight scenes.
Nice.
Yeah. Ours is comedy all the way. Ours is basically an action comedy. What is Earthbound? Is it action, serious? What's the tone?
Yeah, it's like a sex comedy, a teen sex comedy, but sci-fi. It's like John Hughes. Awesome. Yeah, but with like maybe like even like Star Wars or something. I don't know.
John Hughes is great. Yeah, John Hughes movies are awesome. So you're writing in screenplay format as well then?
Yeah. And I have a couple other scripts that one of them is like teens also, I guess. So that'll come out eventually, and then I'm like, I might pigeon myself as the teen guy in Comicsgate, but maybe I'm okay with that. I don't know. I kind of like writing for teenagers.
Well, I'm not a teen. Am I allowed to buy your books?
Yeah. It's just like, like even like horror movies are often always about teenagers and stuff. And
so. Yeah, my wife loves that shit, so I'll just give them to her.
Yeah.
I'll read enough and I'll go, oh no, this is too teen for me.
Yeah, give them to her.
My wife will be all over it. So are you trying to hit that 48 page mark with the new Earthbound? I know you're at 160 pages for a Foreign Agent, I believe.
Yeah. So I haven't really been using the 48 page kind of model. 48 to like with Comicsgate, it's 48 page, and then sometimes a stretch goal will boost it to even like 64 pages. That's kind of like in that realm where for a limited edition high value comic, people are willing to pay $25 for. And for whatever reason, kind of because my style is a little more minimalist and the rate it takes me to do a page and everything, I do higher page counts. Some of that is because I was working on these books before Comicsgate sort of came around and started, so I got a head start. So like a lot of these, like Foreign Agent and Earthbound, have been these kind of big page releases. Eventually, I might get to doing like maybe a 64 page one shot type thing that's like a part one, and see how that goes.
Have you considered doing a more detailed work and not just doing the minimalist style? I don't know if you have multiple styles of art. I like a lot of detail in my work. So
yeah, if I change the method, then the style would change. So like I do it all digital, and I've kind of been going in this direction with that, developing it more and more in like a specific direction that I have that I kind of like. But I want to try and dabble in traditional, like just penciling and inking pages like in the real world eventually. And I know that's going to change the style, and it probably will be a little more detailed. It will slow down, go slower. So that would fit better with like a 48 page model one shot if I do that. Sometimes I like when the art style fits the story. And like, so Foreign Agent's kind of like that, where there's parts where the characters start drawing within the story. So then when their art within the story, we cut to that, I hired other artists to draw that. So it's like meta art kind of. And
really?
then, so
That's
yeah,
fascinating.
yeah. So the art style changing kind of symbolizes changes in the story and stuff. And I have one idea that's kind of like a Matrix-y type. It's in that genre of like, you know, like Inception or Matrix. And I was like, it'd be cool to do like the real world pages traditionally and the Matrix pages digitally for that story.
Yeah, I'm working digital myself, but I work traditional all the time, drawing and painting. So, but yeah, no one's seen much of my art. I mean, I've posted some paintings on Facebook. I have a painting back here that I posted on Facebook. So, but yeah, so I'm kind of working on the style of the book, and obviously I'm working with my co-author PSA Sitch, a guy that I do my weekly show with. So, you know, we're going back and forth, which I think the script I'm really happy with. I just working. Have you worked with a co-author before? I mean, I've done tons of projects with other authors, other screenwriting projects, but this is like the first comic project I've done with another author.
Yeah, I'm curious about that, your opinion on that. I have done a little bit of it, and I've had experiences that are great and ones that are not so good and whatever. But do you guys find that if you're arguing, is that like productive or not productive? Or
we fight like cats and dogs. I'm telling you, like we hammer it out. I often feel, I was telling Sitch yesterday because we were going over some stuff, and I felt like I feel like I'm torturing him. I feel like I'm driving him insane, but he's like, no, this is a good way to develop a tight script, because you figure you really have two people working on the project. So I have the advantage of being able to look at his pages with fresh eyes. And, you know, everyone, you're kind of trying to engage your cringe detector. You're like, is this awful? Is this terrible? You know, you're looking at it from the point of view of an audience, and you can catch things that you would never catch in your own writing. So it's great for that. And he does the same thing with my writing. So that, you know, I'll take a pass and send it back to him, and he'll be like, no, this is how this will be perceived, and that's not exactly what we're going for. My biggest thing is I like to have a high density of storytelling. I like everything to be a setup or a payoff. Everything is a setup for something down the line, or a payoff for something previous. And I notice in a lot of mainstream comics, there's just a lot of things that they'll throw out that just have no relationship to the story whatsoever, just are never called back to or never paid off. And that constantly bugs me.
yeah, if it's like tight, that feels good. And yeah, I can definitely relate to like how it feels where if you're writing by yourself, sometimes like you can wait 3 months to see it in fresh eyes, or if you're working with someone, you pass it right to them, that you can skip that 3-month process. They do it right away, kind of catch some stuff.
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah. So we did a back and forth on the screenplay version, and now we're kind of going back and forth on the thumbnailed version. And I'm thumbnailing everything out, and I'm kind of lettering as well to get an idea what the panels are like. And you know, you start treating every single line like a tweet, like you're fussing with it, you know, trying to get the most economy out of the words. So,
Yeah.
and to make the dialogue good.
Yeah, you know, something kind of more, a little more broad, but something that I've thought about a little bit is I remember I used to play with action figures on the stairs in my house, specifically GI Joes, I think, and have them crawl the stairs. And like there'd be a point where like always when they're going up the stairs, there'd be a point where they like rest, or like they take a nap, and then I might take a nap while they're taking a nap. And like that's like that can kind of come up with in comics or storytelling, where like if you've earned it, if you like sandwich a chill moment between two intense moments, then you kind of earn that moment and you can enjoy it and have fun with it. Oh, there's one other thing with that too, is like sometimes scenes you can cut into the scene like 1 minute before the actual scene begins, and then you have like a little chill moment, kind of like a moment of repose before the real thing begins. You could also cut in late to the scene and get out early, but this is like just some pacing things you can do. In your case, I guess you probably wouldn't want to do that if it's already kind of dense. You want
No,
to
we
cut in
we have that. We totally do. fight scene. We have a fight scene that goes on, man, I think it's maybe 10, 12 pages, but there are those moments, hiding behind the burning car where they do the talk about the situation, that kind of thing. Rib
Yeah,
each
I
other
love
a
I
little bit.
love that stuff in action and yeah, in comics, like just kind of like the earned chill sections. But the key word I guess is like, yeah, they have to be kind of like earned just basically by being sandwiched. Like I've even thought about that kind of applies to like video game pacing. Like I'll sometimes watch let's plays of Resident Evil 4, which a lot of people claim that's one of the best games of all time. That game has very famous pacing. And sure enough, if you watch people play it, you're like, there's always something new happening. If it's intense, then there's a moment to chill and kind of back and forth. And so I sometimes even try and take inspiration, think about that. About it. Sometimes it's like Tarantino calls it like the umbilical cord to the viewer, but like there's like a correlation between how they feel and what's happening on screen. So like you can kind of relax them strategically, with scenes if that's what needs to happen at the point, or you can pump it up.
This is what's super valuable about working with a co-author too, is because of that umbilical cord to the audience, because you're reading it as the audience when you're reading something that your co-author has written. So you're really seeing it from their perspective. And words are funny because a lot of times you'll write a line that can be interpreted in multiple ways and you don't even realize it. You think there's only one way that line can be interpreted, the way in my head. And then I'll read it and I'll think something completely different. And once I voice that, once I say, Sitch, this line seems like it's this, all of a sudden, you can see it both ways and kind of get out of that situation. Best case scenario, you're broadcasting to the audience exactly what you want to broadcast because you're trying to give them certain information to make later points of information in the script more satisfying. And if they don't get that information, then it's just not satisfying.
Yeah. That's true. Hey, Random McAnderson, he says, Narwhal, any updates on Foreign Agent? Really quick, I'll just say it again. It's like, yeah, it's just in fulfillment, and I'm waiting to give a good update because I want news back from my liaison with the printer, who's this guy named Benny. But I talked to him yesterday, but it was more of an update about the future update, like it's coming, blah, blah, blah. I know your boy Zach says he hates that, and I don't want to pass that on to the backers yet. So once I hear from him, I'm waiting for the proofs, basically, though. So they'll be here sooner or later, and then they get approved, God willing, and then it's, a 2-month process. Then all the books are here. So it's getting there. It's going pretty smooth, just kind of slow-ish, but it's going good.
I got Super Harem today, Wanger's book, so that was cool.
Nice. Yeah, Wanger's a gem. Wanger is a gem of CG. His new project launches like soon, like tomorrow or the next day.
Yeah, I know he's excited about it.
Yeah, he sent me a preview copy of that like a year ago almost, and I read it because he's had it for a while. It's his passion project. He's been working on it here and there since he's 15 or something. But it's like that one might be like 200 pages or something, and that's another one. Like it's structured like you'll be impressed with the structure. You know how you were kind of laughing at Doug TenNaples writing? I think like I think you'll be.
I was making fun of it.
Yeah, I think you'll be impressed with Wanger's writing. It has good structure.
No, I love Wanger's writing. There's a story there. The thing that I don't like about TenNapel is just it's very
Did you say
sterile.
It was too random? Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's his comedy exactly. Completely random comedy. My comedy is much more grounded, I'd say. Like you have to comedy. I don't know. You're saying is your book comedy? Is writing comedy? No, you said like young adult.
No, yeah, like Earthbound definitely has like jokes in it. But then like Foreign Agent, it has a few jokes, but it's definitely not a comedy. Yeah. I'm kind of getting a little bit more away from the comedy stuff, but that's kind of definitely what Earthbound is like, a little bit in that realm.
All I write is comedy, and like even serious stuff. Like I feel compelled to make jokes. So the comedy for me is all about surprise, and an easy way to surprise people is just to throw random stuff at them. So it just seems like the laziest kind of comedy to me. So
yeah, it's kind of, I sometimes feel like there's like, that can be like sort of dated to like, I don't know, like
big time. Yes.
2008 to 2012 is like the era of OMG so random comedy kind of.
Oh yeah, exactly. So I have a couple other topics we can talk about. We're going to go for, I think, for another 10 minutes, but the self-insert thing is interesting because we're actually self-inserts in our book, which is a huge no-no, but it's like we're liked on our show.
And
We're selling. Yeah, go
that'll
ahead.
be your audience, right? Yeah. A
Yeah,
big part.
so we're selling to our audience. So the self-insert thing is kind of a way to cheat, because the hardest thing in a book or a movie or any storytelling is to get people to like the protagonist. Well, they already like us on our show. They show up every week and they send us a bunch of super chats and listen to us gab. So we're using our personality, but it completely complicates the writing process in ways that I never imagined until we actually started doing this, because you're super conscious about how you want to be represented, which is a thing that I don't have to deal with in any other story writing format, because this is a character that I'm using to achieve a goal. So if the character does something, well, you want the character to do stupid things because you want the character to face conflict and hopefully eventually overcome, but experience some kind of setbacks. Well, when you're the character, everything all of a sudden you're looking at from a completely different perspective, almost a perspective that's painful at times. Hopefully, I think we've gotten past it. But do you have any comments on the self-insert thing?
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I know I like that. I think you should go for it and have fun with it. I know, like, writing in general, I sometimes think about like how ego can relate to that. And that can sometimes apply with, if you're working with a co-writer too, then you got two egos and then
Yeah, we got that.
Yeah, yeah. And so it can get more complicated. But a lot of times it like, sometimes I kind of think in the back of my head, I'll say like anti-ego. Like if I ever did do a self-insert, I might go the extreme and like really make fun of myself a whole bunch. And then, but that's almost too much, or if it serves the story, you don't know, but
that's what we do. And we definitely were conscious from the very beginning that we don't want to be Mary Sue's. Like, we don't want to be, super super powerful, and we almost go to the other extreme where we're constantly getting beat up on. Random McAnderson in the chat says you need a persona like Cecil. That's another thing that I did early on, but my co-author didn't do as much as me. I took my name off the character. I was joking around about my calling myself Adam Skullcrusher. My character is Skullcrusher, but I don't use my name, and I try not to talk. You'll have story conversations where we'll talk about me and you, and I try to take the me and you out of it and talk about the character, them, they, they're doing this or that, and that helps a lot. So
yeah, then they can kind of become their own thing with their working with the tools they have within the story, rather than getting muddled too much if it's like the self-insert extending to the real world.
Yeah.
Like it would become, it's almost, rather than a self-insert, it's almost like an avatar, or, well, I don't know if there's any difference there, but it's like
Anderson has it right with Cecil, because Cecil is just totally a persona.
Yeah. Once it can kind of separate completely, but still be like, I know in South Park, they've said, they ask who's your self-insert, and they're like, well, we started and I was Kyle and he was Stan, but we realized we're both actually Cartman.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So the other thing I was thinking would be cool to talk about is old stuff, because I ran a screenwriters lab for like 10 years, and I've read literally thousands of screenplays, and people would come in all the time with their old screenplay from like 1987 that they were going to dust off and spruce up, and all these scripts just seem so dated to me. So I just want to let everyone know that this script is brand new. Like, we started working on it, maybe 3 months ago, 4 months ago. So Like we started in story meetings. I started with a bunch of pitches. Like when you first get an agent or a manager in Los Angeles, they want you to come up with a bunch of log lines for because they send you around to these pitch meetings, and they never want the thing that you're actually there to sell. So they always ask, "What else you got?"
Yeah.
So I just pulled that log line thing out that my manager made me do forever ago. And we just started working from there. Like, which of these do you like? Here's just a ton of story ideas, and ended up using one of those and just developing a story from there. So are you constantly developing new material or?
Yeah. What'll happen is I'll have like a list of scripts I want to write, and they're slowly developing, and I might have like my top 3. And I'm like, these are going to be my magnum opus. These 3 will be so awesome. And then I'll kind of sit down, and there won't be quite the inspiration there. Then I'll have another idea that's just kind of a simple little idea. I'm like, I'd rather do that. So then that's where all the inspiration goes. And that's kind of like the brand new script that's like maybe not epic. It's just like a little more simple and chill. But in the moment, that's the one I get really excited about. It's whatever's new. So I don't even know if I'll get around to like the 3 that I'm like keep thinking about, supposedly, because little things keep coming up.
Do you have a writing process that you use?
Yeah, I guess like even late.
That sounds like a no, though.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what I do. Like most recently, because I actually went through a little phase where I just jump in and write, and I wrote, even in the last year, I think 3 or 4 scripts. I got like 30 or 40 pages in, and then kind of abandoned them. And it was kind of bugging me because I don't normally do that. So I was like, what's going on? And am I losing the magic? What's happening here? And then I did finally finish the script like last spring, and I was like, yes. And I think for that one, it was like just kind of like, mostly for like getting lucky and jumping in and just going with some inspiration, not too much outlining. But I'm doing another one where I go on Gmail and I open up a draft so I can come back to it later, and I'll write a ton of like sort of like outline, but it's like free flow outline stuff. And I've been doing that like for a month straight, and I still don't have like the plot fully worked out yet. And so I don't know if that'll dead end. It's kind of funny. It's definitely a lot of it's like throwing shit at the wall and see what sticks.
And
chasing the inspiration is last thing. Yeah.
You're looking for those really like enjoyable moments. So I do understand that. Once I have a first draft, I mean, if you're writing, I encourage you to just bang out that first crappy draft. Like you have to get a draft out. If you labor over something, every detail of something, you're never going to get it. And the first draft is always going to suck. The first draft is not going to be anything close to your final draft. And once you have an ending, like I usually don't feel like I have a good story until I have a good ending. Then you can work backwards. It's so easy to go in and say, okay, this ending is so satisfying. I just need to add a lot of setups that pay off this satisfying ending, because the funnest part of a story for me is when you're at that ending, you're at that satisfying moment, and you're remembering all the things that led up to this moment, and just kind of cataloging them in your head. It makes it so much more satisfying.
Yeah, I agree with that. For me, it can be hard. So yeah, if I don't know the ending, because sometimes I will do that. Oh, there's a thing I do too that I kind of did this with Earthbound, and it worked, and I do it when I can, where if I get to a point where I'm like, what should happen now with the plot? Like I need something to happen, or I need this to happen so that then this can happen, and that's going to be badass. I start to grind more and more to a stop and losing inspiration. And I realize I can get inspiration back at that point when I just go like, all right, it doesn't have to be badass, but what would happen? Like what's more realistic? Like what would the character actually do? And then the inspiration comes back pretty quickly. Like I think I had one, even I can give a quick example where like I had a girl, she's waiting in bed and her boyfriend is in jail, and she's going to see him in the morning, and she's just thinking about him or whatever. So you cut to him in jail, like whatever. And then I was kind of like at this dead end. I was like, you know what? I think she might not wait till morning. She might go out and try and help him that night, even though she's like about to fall asleep. So she kind of wakes up, puts her shoes on, gets in her truck, and goes to do this one thing she can still do that night to try and help him. And that kind of kept the plot moving. And I'm like, oh, now I'm in this whole new area where like The characters are just doing what they want to do, and I'm not trying to construct this perfect little clever plot. They're just doing what they do. Earthbound's a little bit like that too, because with Earthbound there almost is no plot other than this competition. It's like who can recruit these deadly warriors on Earth first, and who can get more of the. There's like 4 of them who can get the majority, or there's 5 who can get the majority of 5. So it's just whatever their strategy is they use to employ to try and get these targets. That's the story. And so then it gets back to just them. They're just doing what interests them and serves them the best. They both have Spaceman and Julie are the ones competing. They each have their own strategy to go about doing it.
Yeah, this is another good thing working with a co-author is a lot of times as a writer, you'll tend towards a preference. Like I have a strong preference for jokes over logic. And sometimes that gets the best of me because it can take you out of a story if you kind of jump the shark on logic. So Sitch is always reeling me in because I'm going to go for the joke first and he's going to go for the logic first. So I think it ends up making for a more satisfying story when you try to play those shoot the middle on those things. Don't go too far.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And that sometimes if you ever get feedback on like what people actually laugh at, a lot of times it's like when they are connected in the world with the characters, the logic isn't broken, and then like they'll laugh a lot, or vice versa. You could like really surprise them, like you're saying, if it's out of nowhere. But you could, with the non-logic thing, could get into that realm of LOL so random that we're kind of trying to avoid these days and stuff too.
Yeah. So this was great, man. I don't want to keep you too long. I know you got another thing going at you said like 5:10. So sorry for the late setup, obviously, but this was a lot of help.
I know. Yeah, it's good to talk to you. I like talking to like kind of like fellow writers, and your insight interests me too. And we'll keep in touch. I'm looking forward to your project. What's it called?
Supervillains Anonymous. We have a mailing list going. We're up to about 1,100 email addresses. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's a high number. It will do well. That's cool.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, I was talking to Sitch yesterday. I was like, are we going to live stream a lot like the Comicsgate guys do? Or are we going to be live streaming every day? So I don't know. We'll probably live stream, as much as is necessary. I've contemplated, are we going to do like a 24-hour launch live stream like Raging Golden Eagle did? Maybe. Yeah. I could probably do it.
Yeah, that'd be fun. And a lot of Comicsgate would be there for you. I'd come on and guest for like a period of time or whatever. And a lot of people would.
Yeah. It should be fun. I can't wait. I'll show you some artwork before I launch it. I don't want to show stuff and get people all jazzed when we don't have anything up. So obviously I'm kind of holding my cards tight to the vest on what the style is going to look like, but I'm shooting for something that looks really, really cool. And Sitch and I are arguing a lot over the aesthetic. We're very much going for very cool, like Tarantino. I love Tarantino movies because I think Tarantino is cool looking. Like everything in the environment is cool. All of the characters are cool, but it's funny as hell in the dialogue. The dialogue that he has, like the situations that he sets up, are hysterical. So that's kind of what we're doing. We're trying to make it really cool looking aesthetically and a really funny adventure thematically and story wise.
Yeah, nice. Sounds good.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. So do you have any closing words? Do you
no, just if there's any new people, because I'm on your channel, I'm not always on here, you can sub to my channel. It's Narwhal Books. And I'm Narwhal Books on Twitter. And yeah, Foreign Agents in Demand right now and fulfilling soon. And then Earthbound 2 after that. That's all I got.
Yeah, I'll update the description. Like I said, I threw this together last minute. So I'll update the description, put all that stuff in there. So thanks for hanging out, you guys. Everyone, have a great evening, and we will see you all in the next video.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.